All right, what's going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to our 10th Athlete to Entrepreneur panel. Can you believe it's number 10 already? We started these back in October of 2020, and we've been rolling since. Haven't stopped, haven't missed a beat. This is Athlete to Entrepreneur number 10. Next month, I'm going to let everybody know we'll be having the official book launch for the Athlete to Entrepreneur co-author book. Boom, stay tuned for that. This is coming out. This is a collaboration project. 20 different people, 20 different athletes turned entrepreneurs. One of them is coming up right now on the panel, Marlene Holmes. So we'll hear from her. The book launch will be on August 28th. So stay tuned for that, for event links and all that kind of stuff. You know, we'll keep you in the loop, but more on that later. Let's get into today's show. As always, we have another tremendous lineup of athletes turned entrepreneurs for you today. We're not going to waste any time. You know how we do it on these shows. We're going to start out with a good friend of mine. I always call her sis, Miss Marlene Holmes. So I'll give her a quick introduction and then we'll bring her on. Miss Holmes was born in Louisville, Kentucky. Shout out to Louisville. But she has lived around the world as a military kid. She's a former D1 volleyball player who is now a social worker and entrepreneur. Miss Holmes has mastered the art of utilizing her athletic training to adapt and contribute to social work and athletics. While attending Bethune-Cookman University, she earned her bachelor's degree in sociology with a social work minor and completed her master's degree at the University of Central Florida. Ms. Holmes currently attends Barry University as a third-year doctoral student in social work, focusing on Black female collegiate athletes' lived experience. She has presented at numerous conferences and organizations, including Jack and Jill of America, the Alliance of Social Workers in Sports, Association for Applied Sports Psychology, Black Student Athletes Summit, and many, many more. She was recently honored as a recipient of the Doctoral Fellowship Award at Barry University for her dedication to bringing awareness to social work and athletics. By creatively combining her passion for sports and her background in social work, she founded the BFCA Experience. For those of you who don't know, that stands for the Black Female Collegiate Experience. In case you've been living under a rock, you haven't heard of Marlene, the BFCA Experience, which focuses on athlete success beneath the jersey by providing tools that prepare, support, and motivate players, parents, and coaches beyond the game. Please welcome to Athlete to Entrepreneur, Miss Marlene Holmes.
Hi.
What's going on, Marlene? Great to see you again.
Good to see you as well, Josh.
I was expecting to see doctor in your name. You know, I'm going to start calling you doctor at that time.
Almost.
Right around the corner. For those of you who don't know, now, Marlene and I did an interview on the ThriveAfterSports podcast, so make sure you tap into that. It's episode 64. I had it ready to go. I looked up the episode number, so there was no misunderstanding. Go back. We're going to be focusing primarily on entrepreneurship today because I know you have a lot to offer in that department, but I wanted to just preface it by saying, everybody go check out episode 64 if you want to get the behind the scenes, the origin story of Marlene Holmes. But with that being said, you know, it's funny because I was reading your bio before we jumped on here, and I'm like, that was only, I think around 9-10 months ago, we did that interview, maybe a little longer, but I feel like a lot has changed. You've been busy, you know, you've been busy. Yeah, I feel like there's before we dive into some more of the technical stuff, like just give us an overview. Like I feel like you hit a different level over this past year, I want to say. Talk to me about that. Was there a certain shift that happened, or did you have a shift in focus? Just give us a little peek behind the curtain. What's going on in your world?
Listen, busy is an understatement, you know, but that's what it is. I'll say busy and blessed. You know, we started in January, officially the business launched in January of this year, actually. 2021? Yeah, January of this year. And so, everything runs together. So January of this year, we officially launched. And it's been crazy. It's been absolutely crazy. But what made the shift was the urgency, right? So, and I'm going to lie. I lied. We actually started in January 2020. That's when we started because we launched right before the pandemic hit. And so the urgency for our athletes, their parents, players, and administration was there. And we just came out of the blocks running. But since then, we've had time to really assess the need. So finding local events to be involved in to not only connect with those within the athletic community, but parents and teachers and professors who aren't necessarily in this space. So we've been able to expand our reach every weekend. I think for like 4 or 5 weeks in a row prior to this past weekend. I was somewhere every weekend, speaking, selling our merch, giving people involved in our PASS program. So we're not only focusing on the collegiate athlete experience, but the high school athlete experience. And we started to slowly merge our way into the 7th and 8th graders. So it's been a lot. And the shift was, what can we do more? How can we expand? Where is the need? What is the research saying? And then obviously what happens in the media, what's going on with athletes. So when you get into that mental health aspect, it's like, okay, are we talking about this enough? Are we simplifying this enough so that everyone can understand it and make it relatable to them? So I think that's where the shift has been. But I'm thankful because having that social work background really lays the foundation for that. So I'm able to excel in any area and then accelerate when I need to. So that's been the blessing. I went home 2 weeks ago for volleyball camp. So also I've been thankful to get outside of Florida and network. So a lot of it's been virtual, right? We're connecting with people out of state, but our brand really is nationwide. So that's been a big push that I'm not just here. I'm not just behind the computer. Now I'm out in the world.
That's right. Really getting in the trenches and doing the work and actually impacting people in person, which is huge. And I love that you're doing that. And you touched on something that I had to write down because I think just from a business perspective, I want to really paint the picture for people about how you did this. Now, your business is called the BFCA, the Black Female Collegiate Athlete, college athlete, right? Now, you say you started out at the college level, have an impact there, and you started working your way down to the high school level, and to now you say you're working with middle schoolers, 7th, 8th graders. I know eventually, you might be in kindergarten classes one of these days. So was that always the goal from the beginning, to start at the collegiate level and then work your way down, or was that something that developed over time?
That's a great question. I think when you talk about entrepreneurship and the vision and the journey, for me, I have to be transparent initially. I believe in God. So everything that I do is guided and it's prayers. So initially, yes, this is necessary. You've had the professional background, working in healthcare, working with all ages. But I always found the space for sports. I always found a space for teaching. So I've always had that. I just had to I now know that it took 10 years to develop those skills and those experiences, the hardships, and just the unexpected journey of life. So when I started, I knew that the brand, the BFCA experience, would throw some people off, because initially people say, oh, she only works with Black female collegiate athletes. But it's a great opportunity for that elevator pitch to say, hey, that's not what the brand represents, but what it represents is that this experience was me. And because of these intersections, I can bounce off and work with anyone, anywhere, based on my experience. So obviously the Black female collegiate athlete experience is me. It's what I know, it's what I do. But that journey has allowed me to work with all ethnicities, all ages, all genders, everything. And so once we got into this space, as a social worker, we say, meet your client where they are. And so if I'm meeting with a junior in college, that's talking about transitioning, but then I have a parent that says, well, my son is in 7th grade. I wish I would have done this a little differently. Or do you have this insight on what this journey is? That's what was happening. So I couldn't just stay boxed in. Also, I had to expand my team. A lot of the work behind the scenes initially, Taj, it was me. Appointments, phone calls, getting merch, designing shirts with my designer. Like all of this stuff was just me. But once we decided and God said, you need to create this PASS program, I said, there's no way I can do this. So I had to establish relationships and professional relationships and friendships with folks that are in this space, out of this space, and all over the country to say, yes, I'm an expert in many areas, based on what I do, what I've seen, but I had to find people that specialize in certain areas to benefit my athlete. So I basically went from a 1-person team to a 3-person team. So now we have 15 people, a part of our PASS program. So that was the expansion of the organization, and it will continue to expand. But I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to adjust and maneuver through this space, or otherwise you are going to keep yourself boxed in. And that's definitely not going to benefit your business. But also there's so many people that you can serve. You just have to be willing to grow with it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that the vision has organically grown over time. And that's something you really gave a great example of, because you had the vision, but it's one thing to have the vision. It's another thing entirely to go out and execute on the vision.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
people talk a good game, right? But that was one of the reasons you and I connected from the get-go, because you walk it like you talk it. You know, you
Yeah.
don't just talk about these grand plans. You're not just posting feel-good memes. You know,
Yeah.
you're out there executing, developing relationships, having impact, and like you said, expanding this globally. You know, starting around
Yeah.
the country at first, but it's definitely
Yeah.
going to be a global thing. Something you mentioned that I want to take a deep dive into, especially for those who are aspiring entrepreneurs or maybe at this stage, you know, in their entrepreneurial journey. You talked about building a team. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that's so important. That's a lesson over the past year or two I really had to learn and really
Yeah.
had to embrace and grow myself, not only as a leader, but understanding how to work with a team again, which is crazy with us being athletes. Coming from
Yeah.
a team environment, we have to almost learn it all over again, how to execute in, you know, the real world and business and everyday life. So, I mean, there's so many different directions we could go with this team aspect, but let's start with this. How does one know, okay, it's time for me to start bringing on people to support the movement? When was that decision made, and how did you reach that point?
So I'll say at the very beginning. So the November of 2019, October, November, I went to a conference with the Allied Sport Psychology Association, and Dr. Tanya Tinsley did a presentation, and she stated that as you develop a business, or going to developing your own business, you need to pray before you do anything. So I'll say for me, and for those of you that are believers, that was what guided me. So when I started this, who can I bring into this circle who I will have clear intentions, have the passion that I have, and understand where I want this to go, even maybe beyond what I see. So initially, it was my teammate, Shell Tyson. We played volleyball together, but then Cookman. She has her own business with photography and media and all of that. And so when I started the podcast, the Yep, She Said It podcast, she was like, listen, you're going in a new area. Let me help you, right? As an athlete, I didn't always, ask for help. You just knew what you need to do to get the work done, right? Usually your coach would be the one that's saying, listen, put more weight, come into the gym. You need to do this in off season. And so sometimes you forget that people can't read your mind. So I'm thankful to have people in my space to say, let me come in and help you get to the next level, because I have a skill that you don't have, right? I don't edit videos. I don't do that. So she came on board and helped me with that and expand. And so that opened the door to make more connections. Then we'll fast forward with where we are now with PASS. So preparing athletes to succeed and soar. So that's our academic and athlete support program. So have I created programs and developed curriculum? Absolutely. Have I had to market and network and meet complete strangers and email and call people? Absolutely. But have I launched somewhat like a school? No, right? The framework was already there. I just came in and gave it the magic. So I had to reach out to my best friend since high school, since our freshman year in high school, that had started her own school in Fairbanks, Alaska. So she knew the work that it took, the structure that we needed to have, the framework that we needed to build on. So I had to find people that could separate friendship from professionalism, because that's big. And again, that would match the same level of energy and dedication that I have. I don't think I'm a perfectionist, but I do believe that when I give someone a task or we have a conversation, that I don't micromanage. So everyone that is a part of my team can execute, because this is not just because they're all an extension of me, right? They won't say, oh, so-and-so didn't do a good job. They'll say, Marlene's business is not doing great. Like, they're not professional. They're late to our classes, all of that. So everyone that I've brought on board has been referrals, have been direct connections, maybe people I haven't talked to in 3 to 5 years, but I see their work. So also you have to remember that people are always watching. You never know who's paying attention. So that's how my business has navigated in these spaces. And then understanding partnerships. I had to learn that. I had to say, what else do we need? What are these relationships? And learn how to say that this is mutual. You can benefit from joining our team, and my company can benefit from joining your team as well. So you have to do your research in this area. You have to have relationships and mentors, because I just kind of came out of the block running. But again, I worked in corporate America for 10 years, right? So I had all of that experience coming before developing this business, and I still travel and develop curriculum for a major corporate company. So I don't want people thinking, oh, this is the only thing you have to do. No, you just have to find balance. And so for me, every single thing that I do, it aligns. Everything. There's nothing that I do that doesn't connect with the other, because once you find your passion, I know people, it's oversaturated, but it's real. Once you find your passion, everything will line up. So you just have to be intentional about it and the people you bring into your space.
That's right. And I love the fact that it started out with a teammate. That was like the first
Mhm.
person who was on board with your team. But then again, like you said, just because someone is your teammate or you grew up with them or they're a friend or they're a family doesn't mean they're going to be able to get the job done when it's time to step up to the plate in business. So
Yep.
another thing that you shared that I think is really important is how you talked about micromanaging. You're
Mhm.
not someone who wants to micromanage. That's just not how you're wired. You rather just bring on people who can do the job so you don't have to
Yep.
micromanage them. So
Exactly.
I think that's awesome. I think a lot of times, I think that's important for people to hear who are aspiring entrepreneurs, because I think sometimes people want to have control, right? And
Yep.
what you just shared is so important because that forces people to be like, wait a minute, I don't have to bring all these people on and try to control them if I'm bringing on the right people and they're doing what they need to do anyway because they understand the vision and they're professionals in their given field. So
Yeah.
that is
Absolutely.
awesome.
Thank you,
Um,
Todd.
yeah, of course. Hey, listen, I'm just holding up a mirror telling you what I'm seeing. You know what I mean? I was reading through this last night, and I already knew your chapter was fire because I did take a sneak peek before it officially went to print. But there was a couple of things I didn't even plan on this, but I was reading through it, and there was just a couple like almost like one-liners that I saw, and I was like, I'm definitely bringing this up on the panel tomorrow. Um, so I'm gonna just kind of let this, because some of them are so deep, you got to let them marinate. I'm gonna read it real quick, and I'm gonna
Okay.
let you just kind of explain. So you wrote, and I quote, this is future Dr. Marlene Holmes. You
Yes.
wrote, the challenge for us as entrepreneurs is understanding our journey of self. I'm gonna let
Mhm.
that breathe for a second. What did you mean by that? That was a heavy hitter right there.
I have not necessarily shared my entire journey with a lot of people. Only the close people know what I've gone through. But when I say journey of self, it's the up and downs, it's the insight, it's the experience, it's the mental health journey, it's the grief, it's the success, it's going into spaces thinking that you're not qualified, but still having to excel. It's the experience of the intersections for me of being a Black female in every space that I go to, whether it's going to lunch or it's going to a job, or it's going into a space where I'm the only woman, usually the youngest person in the space. So when I say journey of self, it's the chapters that you go through and acknowledging your success and the challenges. So sometimes I think we go through something and we want to dismiss it. We want to push it away. We don't want to talk about it. But the journey itself is the acknowledgement. It's sitting in it and it's growing from it. Once you learn how to do that, then you will be able to better serve yourself and serve others. In a short amount of time, I had numerous car accidents that were not my fault, by the way. Hit by a semi truck and a Tahoe on the turnpike here in Florida. Was blessed to walk out of that alive. So when I say journey of self, it's looking at what those moments, what they meant, what was I doing, where was I going, and was I intentional? Did I not allowing yourself to disconnect so much to where you're detached from that experience? And so, I'll use what Simone Biles has been saying, that she's like the twisties, they call it. And it means that your body is just not in sync. Your mind is not connected with what you're doing physically. And I think so often we walk through life like that. Our mind is doing something and our body is doing something else. Our emotions are pushed to the side and our mind is just thinking, we got to go, got to go, got to go. But once you get in sync, you will be able to have that discernment in those spaces that you don't need to be in, that's not helping you grow. Instead, that is forcing you to suppress who you are and where you're trying to grow to. And so that's the journey of self. It's just living in that moment, every breath, day for day, starting from as far back as you can remember. And I'll say, Taj, about this book, it was so fun to write, but it was an emotional journey that I really wasn't anticipating, right? Because I really had to go back and say, wow, from my mind now and look back to childhood and when I enter sports and say, wow, this is what I was thinking, this is what I was feeling. I didn't recognize that until, I'm a grown woman now. So I'm thankful that eventually those twisties went away and now my body is in sync with itself. And so that's also something for entrepreneurs to think about. Make sure that you are fully present and in sync, because what you can cause further injury to yourself, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. So it's real.
Yeah, yeah. I love the analogy of the twisties that you use there, and the fact that because it sounds to me like my interpretation of it is that you're basically going back and healing those parts of yourself. And I know that you
Mhm.
said by writing the chapter for the book, you were able to do that and process that. But it's almost like, because we know a business or whatever you do in life is a reflection of you. Whatever you put out into the world, that's ultimately what's going on in your internal world. And so the fact that you were willing, which is so important for people to hear, to go back and look at certain parts of yourself, heal those things, examine why it affected you in certain ways. You basically did it's basically analyzing yourself. You did some therapy with yourself, essentially.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah, I think that's important for people to hear too, because it's not something that's really talked about enough. A lot of times it's great to tell people to go get help. But I think you can't beat going to get help externally, but also doing the inner work as well. Right. And if you pair those two up, you can't lose. So
I agree.
I'm looking for my next Marlene Holmes quote in here that I underlined. Okay, this one, I had to highlight this one because it definitely does apply to entrepreneurship and everything we're talking about today. You said, I had to prepare and believe in something that I couldn't provide. Oh, excuse me, let me start over. I had to prepare and believe in something that couldn't provide me an immediate outcome. I had to prepare and believe in something that couldn't provide me an immediate outcome. I mean, some would say that's faith, that.
Right.
What does that mean to you? Because that one hit me in the chest.
Listen, when I hear you read this, I'm like, wow, that's really what I say and how I feel, but isn't it both? I would think so. As an athlete, that if you shoot some extra free throws, you run some stairs, you put in some extra time in the gym, that you're going to have some type of outcome, right? Whether it's the win, it's the loss, it's just that your vertical has increased. Something's going to have a positive outcome, hopefully, from the work that you're putting in. But when it comes into building a business and it comes into investing in yourself and putting yourself out for the world to see, the immediate response doesn't always happen. We could talk about pass. Pass is something that I was like, the first week we're going to be rocking and rolling. We're going to have probably 20 kids in the program. We're going to push. And the first week it was like, where's everybody at? Week 2. Where's everybody at, right? And then slowly but surely you get the inquiries, but people don't necessarily commit. They don't have the time. They have club teams and travel teams. But that this is intentional. That this is supposed to happen. So a lot of people will give up in those early stages. Like I said, we started January of 2020. We went through a pandemic and still, going through a pandemic. And people are like, oh, this would be a horrible time to start. We're not going to have the results. So it's just really about trusting the vision, because I didn't come up with this idea. So when you talk about faith and prayer, that's where it came up with. The title, the mission, the vision, value the athlete beneath the jersey, all that came through prayer, meditation, and faith. So if that is something that's coming from something beyond me, it has to succeed, because why else would it be given to me? So you cannot give up. I think about everything that I've gone through, and I think about all the moments that I should have given up. That just in human form, it's too much, right? Go on to the next. You're wasting your time. You could be putting in this. How many things I've had to say no to? How friendships have changed because I can't make it to every recital or every birthday party. And you naturally just want to shift into that. But I realize that this is bigger than me. And I understand that with social media and the instant gratification, that the world is just different. So the journey and the success, you may think people are getting it in a week, in 2 days when they go viral, which is very true, but are they able to sustain? Where is the longevity? Where is the business plan? So whether you get it overnight, have a plan, or you're building like me and you have a plan. So I think that is the biggest thing for me, is that it is faith, but it's not giving up, and know that it's not easy. Don't let anyone tell you that it's easy, because it's not. But when it is your purpose, it works out, and it's more gratifying, no matter what the ups and downs are.
Yeah. You know what? I'm loving this, Marlene. And this is why I love having these conversations, because, I get to, first of all, these are reminders that I'm not crazy, right? I get to, I am crazy, but, we'll say that for another conversation. But I love getting able to come on here and have these conversations in a public setting with people who are former athletes or forever athletes, as Cory Camp said.
There you go.
People who are forever athletes, who are now entrepreneurs, because there's so many things. Like, as you're sharing, I'm just like, yes, there's so many things. Something that I wasn't even planning on talking to you about, which you brought it up. You talked about, I can't make it to every recital. I can't make it to every birthday party. I can't always be there for family functions and different things like that. A lot of times we talk about the sacrifice that it takes on a personal level as entrepreneurs, continuing, getting out of bed and pushing forward. Sometimes we don't feel like it, or when things don't go according to plan, you keep going. Can you take a deeper dive into that sacrifice when it comes to relationships? Be they romantic relationships, friends, family, like talk about the sacrifice that you've experienced personally when you're on a mission to build something.
Absolutely. So I'll say because I'm entering my 4th year of my doctorate. And so at orientation, one of my professors who's on my committee, Dr. Heidi, she explained to us that there would be 3 types of people in our life on this journey. Now at that time, I didn't have the business, right? So I was like, oh, okay, this is what it is, but my life won't happen in my life, But what she described is exactly what also happened with my business. So she said, you'll have 3 people in your life. You'll have folks that will walk through this with you and go through the ups and downs and support you. They don't necessarily have anything to say, but they're listening and they love you. Then you're going to have people that are going to just be waiting for you on the other side. They're not going to understand what this is, but when you get to the other side and you're ready for them, they'll be there waiting on you, right? Then she said, you'll have people that won't understand, that are going to think that you're selfish, that are going to take it personal, that are going to be passive aggressive. I mean, she went on, and I'm not making this up. She went on and on and on. She said, you have to be okay with letting those go. 3 different types of people, right? And so I was like, okay, that's great. When I tell you that is exactly what has happened in my life the past 4 years, and especially the past 1.5 to 2 years, that going through entrepreneurship in the beginning, I did try to bring everyone along. If I had an event, hey, can you bring the orange juice? Hey, can you bring the water? Hey, can you do this? Hey, can you, everybody? Because I'm thinking everybody can do everything. Then you get into these spaces and you realize that some folks don't have the level of professionalism that you need, right? If I got an event for Puma, you can't show up in slides to my Puma event thinking that that's okay. Okay, I'm not talking about cute slides. I'm not talking, no, okay, like I don't have to say what I'm saying, but you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So you have to realize professionally the direction that you're trying to go, and you're not dismissing anyone's experience. You're not saying that people aren't qualified and capable to do what they may need to do. But in the space and opportunities that I were going into, it was a setback. It was a set up, and not in a good way. So as I'm going through this, I had to start to say no a lot. First, it was just no because of my doctorate, right? The papers, the reading, like it's unimaginable. So when I couldn't come to this birthday party or I couldn't go to this event, people were taking it personal. Well, are you really not coming to this? And you've missed everything. Well, it's not like I've been just saying no and do not disturb. Things are actually happening. So that was really the journey. And it was hard. I mean, I had to have therapy and talk to family and friends and say, is it me? Like, let me make sure this isn't me. And then when I realized that, no, it's me, but it's my journey. And so you have to be okay with saying no. And your growth is going to change you. It doesn't mean that you're self-centered. It doesn't mean that you don't care, but you are going to go into spaces that God did not design for everyone to fit in. And that's just the reality of it. And when you try to do that, you're going to see the disruption in your opportunities. You're going to see the delay in the blessings, because if it's a room for 4 and you're trying to bring 10, something's going to happen. Either it's going to break. It's going to require some constant, repairs and all of that. And you don't have time for that. When God is telling me to do something, I don't have time to get everybody together. I remember I had a photo shoot and, having folks come along, and I made it clear I wasn't, making the money. So I'm like, now I can't pay y'all, but hotel is covered, gas is covered, and food is covered. I just need you to help me look like a pretend team, right? I need an assistant. I need this. This is like my first major speaking engagement. Sometimes you got to look the part, right?
That's right.
Have my makeup artist come to the hotel, and everybody knows their role. Everybody. And do you know people were not getting out of bed? The cameras weren't prepared. Nothing. So it looked so unprofessional. And the makeup artist after the event came to say, I think you need a new team. Can you believe that? So people watch and they see that who you are and what you're trying to do is not connecting. And you don't know how many opportunities you will lose because your team is not a representation of you. So the sacrifice is real. Going through the journey is necessary. And sometimes you have to go through it alone until the next door is open for you. So be okay with that. I wanted to give up a lot early on because it seemed like it was too much. But when I would just push a little more and get in that door, I would meet somebody else. We'll get to this event, meet somebody else. Or reminded of something that, oh, you can do, this is how you do it. This is a program you can use for free. Have you contacted this person? So God will provide when you go through those areas. So you just have to be consistent and literally have the faith, because the sacrifice is no joke, but it's necessary. And so that was, I think, my biggest lesson going through this. And I can see why it breaks some people. It's not for everybody.
And see, this is why I say conversations like these remind me that I'm not crazy and that I'm
Right.
not alone. When you said if you're trying to bring 10 and there's only room for 4, I almost fell out my seat. That's a great analogy right there. I love how you painted that picture. And I feel like, you know what? Well, first of all, let me get to some of these comments that were on screen a minute ago. I remember what they said. Birkin Killer, that might be one of your friends who's tuning in. Birkin Killer, shout out to Birkin Killer. She said, prayer is real. Amen.
It is.
And then my man Aswan Crunkshake, shout out to Aswan, said, preach. Yes, Miss Holmes was preaching right now. And shout out to Aswan. Make your move. That's the man himself.
Awesome.
Thank you for being here, Aswan. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I didn't know you were going to take us to church today, Marlene. I was
me either.
Well, we can easily keep this going on and on. Folks, if you enjoyed what you heard today from Marlene Holmes, shameless plug, go check out that Thrive After Sports podcast, episode number 64. It's titled The BFCA Experience. So go check that out because we take a deep dive into it. Marlene was dropping gems about entrepreneurship and staying on your journey today. But if you want to hear the full story, go check out that interview. Follow all. Matter of fact, Marlene, before we get out of here, we can easily go another hour, but please tell people how they can get in touch with you, how they can follow you, please, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Everything you need to know is on my website. So it's www.marleneholmes.com. So Instagram is _BFCA experience. But again, everything is on the website. I have a podcast as well called Yep, She Said It. We have some visual interviews on YouTube. But also I want to make sure that you all heard me talk a little bit about PASS. So that's the shirt. I don't know if you can see it. Preparing athletes to succeed and soar. This is an amazing program that we have launched that we are supporting our athletes academically. So we have tutoring, and we also have everything from our physical therapist, our dietitian, folks to help with the athletic recruiting process, and just making sure that if I was in high school again, or even 8th grade, and my mother was like, I need to get my daughter into college academically and athletically, what do I need to know and what do I need to do? That's what we are here for. So please contact us, share with coaches, parents, anyone, so that we can support them. But again, everything you need is on my website, marleneholmes.com. And the email is bfcateam@gmail.com. So Black Female Collegiate Athlete Team @gmail.com.
Awesome. Marlene, you are a gem. Thank you for coming on here and sharing with us as always. I'm so grateful to be associated with you. Oh, we got the website right there, folks. Make sure you get that down. I'm just grateful to be on this mission, running with you as a teammate to serve the athlete community. Thank you for all the work that you do. And thank you in advance for all the work that you're going to continue to do. So appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Taj. It was a pleasure being here. Keep doing your work. And I can't wait for the book to launch.
Yes, ma'am. That's right there. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. How about that, Marlene Holmes, folks? That was awesome. Next up, we got the man himself, the people's champ, Cory Camp. Cory Camp, a former nationally ranked swimmer turned forever athlete, hence the shirt. Cory Camp has spent much of his time following his formal athletic career researching how to bring the athletic mindset and feeling of flow into daily life. Cory started the Athletic Mindset podcast as a way for him to share insights from conversations with the world's most elite athletes and coaches. This endeavor helped him discover his true purpose and realize his potential for impact goes beyond just helping people with their physical abilities. And it's really the mind that determines who will succeed and to what extent. From this, Forever Athlete was founded, a company dedicated to providing athletes of all backgrounds the tools, resources, and community needed to feel flow in their everyday life. Please welcome the athlete to entrepreneur, Mr. Cory Camp.
Man, Taj, you ever show up at some place and you're like, man, you're wearing the same shirt as me?
There it is, brother. You know I
How we
had
doing?
support. I'm doing great, man. It's a pleasure to have you here, man. You know I wasn't going to show up without my Forever Athlete shirt on, just out of respect. Had to do it. I had to do it, man. I'm looking forward. You know, I might be letting the cat out the bag, but I'm looking forward to us potentially being neighbors soon, man. At least part-time neighbors.
Part-time.
That's gonna be a beautiful thing,
Nothing
man.
Signed fully just yet, but we're working on it.
That is awesome. That is awesome, man. I know we're gonna go a few different directions during this segment because you're a wealth of knowledge. And once again, I have to do another shameless plug, but it's not really shameless because I'm really helping people get their knowledge up. Go back to episode 96 of the Thrive After Sports podcast. The episode is called, you guessed it, Forever Athlete with Cory Camp. Make sure you check that out. We went in depth for about an hour. I don't know, man, Cory. I don't even know where to begin with this. We can go several different directions. I know something you've been talking a lot about lately on your podcast is flow.
Yep.
You've been dropping gems on that. I've heard a lot of people talk about flow before, but I think the way that you're presenting the information is rock solid. So why don't we just start with this, man? What is Cory Camp's definition of flow?
Man, it's the best feeling in the world. You know, it's what we got so accustomed to feeling in athletics, because flow is quite literally a state of being, higher consciousness, where we lose sense of ourself in the best way possible. Like time gets warped, our abilities to perform go through the roof, and we're able to be more productive, more creative, and honestly just superhuman in that moment. And even just speaking on it, I'm like, I get excited, as we all do, because I think all of us hear that and we think immediately back to moments in our life where we're like, oh yeah, I felt that way before. That's great. One of the things that I love to do with Forever Athlete is really keep people in, like, that feeling from sports isn't exclusive to sports. We can recreate it in whatever we're doing now. So that's my definition of flow in a short sense.
That's awesome, man. And I know all of us are craving that once we walk away from the game, whatever sport we play. We're craving to find that feeling again that we once got through our sport. So how do we find more of that flow in everyday life? How do we go about tapping into it and making it a regular part of our day?
Yeah, two things. So first, we'll cover the four non-negotiables of flow. So we need these for all high achievers. We need them to perform. First off is sleep. So we need to have good quality sleep. Everyone's going to be a little bit different in that category, somewhere in that 7, 8, 9 hours range, probably. Then we're going to have a daily gratitude practice, which is huge. That can come in the form of affirmations. That can come in the form of journaling, whatever that may be for you. Again, it has to be specific to the individual. Then we're going to be looking at number 3 is a daily mindfulness practice. And that, when I mean by that, it doesn't have to be just like this Zen Buddha, sit underneath the tree in the yard and meditate for 3 hours. Like, it can be something as simple as just being really keyed into whatever the task it is at hand. I use a great example. I find my meditative practice, my mindfulness practice, usually comes when I'm making coffee in the morning. I'll make it fresh drip coffee, so grinding the beans myself, boiling the water on the stove, then we're going pour over style, and it's a nice 10-minute coffee process that really just grounds me and gets me into the day. And then the last thing is daily movement of some sort, which is, it seems like especially coming from the athlete perspective, right? Like, we know movement has to be somewhere in there, but a lot of athletes, I think, when formal athletics ends, we get overwhelmed by what does movement have to look like. When I say daily movement, it doesn't have to be the 2-hour workout. It doesn't have to be a crazy weight room session. It could be as simple as going for a 40-minute walk, going for a hike with friends. And once we start to mix and match, we understand those 4, we can really double dip in some of them, right? Like, you can go out for a walk around Lake Travis or around Lady Bird Lake and get some daily mindfulness practice if you just take the headphones out. And now you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off.
So that's the first part we have to understand. Those are kind of our fundamental pillars. When we have those 4, we're more likely to be primed and getting ready to experience these flow states. Then on the other side of things, there's flow triggers. There's actually 22 of them. So we're not going to go into depth with all of them here, but understanding which flow triggers work best for you. They're going to work differently for different people. We kind of have to experiment and find our flow formula, which is really a lot of the work that we do. And it's kind of what I wanted to do with you today is like, let's find your flow formula. Like what makes you kind of get into that state and understanding that.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
You ready? Let's
I'm
do
ready,
it.
man. I'm going to get some live coaching right now. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, man. Let's roll
Let's
into
get
it.
in. All right.
Let's roll into it. Well, first, and this is a process that I love taking people through. Why'd you get into football in the first place? Like what about it at its core really attracted you to it?
Oh man, because I was a crazy kid with a lot of energy, and the fact that I could run around at full speed and hit people without getting in trouble for it, and I was faster than a lot of kids, in my neighborhood. So that's what got me into it, man. I knew that I could be good at it, and it was a great outlet to just get all this energy out, especially in an aggressive way.
Yeah, I love it. You need to have those outlets too. You know what I mean? If you're not expressing those kind of emotions, then they're being bottled up, and then they're going to come to the surface in other areas that won't serve you in a productive way, like football would. What about your best? Do you have in mind like your best football performance of all time or playing experience?
Yeah, I don't want to sit here and reminisce on the glory days too much, but there's a game in high school where I had like 2 picks, a few touchdowns as well. I played receiver and corner. So great defensive game, great offensive game. There was a lot of scouts and recruiters and stuff there. So that was my best memory. Sometimes, guilty pleasure, I might watch the highlight tape from time to time just to watch the game over again. Damn, that was a great game. All right, now to present day. But yeah, man.
Hey, nothing like that. You need that confidence boost from time to time,
Right.
Do you remember by chance what led up to that moment? Did you have a certain routine in place that got you into that mindset, got you into that headspace of flow?
I think at that point I had 5 Hour Energy had just come out. So, that was part of it. That became like a routine for a few guys, a few teammates before the game. We would pop 5 Hour Energies. But yeah, man, I'm trying to think back to it. I think here it is. I calmed myself despite the fact that I had just taken a 5 Hour Energy to the head. Mentally, I was calm, even though my body was on fire, if that makes sense.
100%. That's one of the key components of flow itself is, all right, the arousal of our nervous system is just enough. We're like, all right, we're ready to go. But our head's clear in the sense of, okay, I understand where it's going to go here, where it's going to go there. Getting clear on your goals goes a long way. That's a flow trigger for a lot of us. The more clear we are with, all right, this is my task at hand for the game. So, this is why athletes struggle so much outside of athletics to find flow again, is because all the best flow examples are in athletics.
Right.
So it's like, all right, clear goals. Obviously, I have to score touchdowns when I'm on offense, and I have to stop the offense when I'm on defense. Pretty straightforward, plain and simple. Now you become an entrepreneur, and it's like, what are my goals every day? I don't know. So do you take time now prior to getting into work for the day to set up a system? Hopefully you're not taking 5 Hour Energies to the face every day, but to get you like locked in, ready to work every single day.
Yeah, most definitely, man. I like to get up really early. I don't look at my phone. I like to read a little something, or maybe I'll just, pray or meditate. Sometimes I'll like get up out of bed and then go into another room, into my office, and just kind of like lay on the floor in silence. So I'm out of bed, but I'm up, but I'm just laying down and kind of listening, so to speak, to whatever God or the universe, whatever anyone wants to call it, whatever I'm being told for that day. And then I might get up and write it down for a little bit, just kind of journal. Then I'll make a cup of mud water. I told you the other day I was quitting coffee, And while I'm drinking my coffee, I'm kind of looking over what needs to be done for the day and jumping right into it. It's funny because I used to do my workouts in the morning, but now I do my workouts in the afternoon after I've done a little bit of work so that I can kind of break up the day. And the workout's almost like a reset for me going to the second half of the day.
I was about to say, you're doing some great stuff with that. We can get really strategic with where workouts go, how our day is structured. I think that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur, right? Is you have a lot of freedom and autonomy of how you can set up your day, which can be either the best thing possible or it could be the worst thing possible.
Right.
Because think of the moment that, for me, when swimming ended and it was like, all right, just go out into the real world. Like, you have free time. I was like, this is awesome. I was like a kid in the candy store. And then 10 minutes later, I had a bellyache because I didn't know how to contain myself and control myself in that environment. So it's good to take some time to set up that structure of the day. What I love that you just said there is you have that intentional break of the workout in the middle of the day. And again, that can be lifting weights, that could be walking, it could be whatever. But that's going to be essential, especially to experiencing a deeper sense of flow coming back into work. Do you have that feeling like when you come back into work in the afternoon?
Yeah, 100%. Especially because, and I know you teach this as well in your coaching. I take a cold shower afterwards.
Yeah.
So I'll come back, eat a little something, jump in the shower, and finish it off with the cold shower. So the endorphins from the workout plus the cold shower, man, I'm unstoppable in that second half of the day, man.
It's the way to go. So you want to know why that is?
Please tell me. Yes.
So flow comes in cycles. There's 4 stages to it. So the first one is struggle. Like, we need struggle to produce skill. So the fact that you're getting into the work day and maybe it's not flowing right away, that's okay. You need that struggle. Just like in sport, when you got moved up to that new team and you got your butt kicked for a few months at a time, it kind of sucked, but you knew on the other side, like, it was worth something, right? So we need to experience struggle to produce skills. And the second part is, all right, we need to take a little step away. So we need to distance ourselves from whatever that task is. For you, that's kind of where that workout comes into play, then followed by the cold shower. When we are struggling with something, you ever look at a problem way too closely and then you step away for a second? It could be in the shower. You have that like aha moment. It's like, oh, that's the solution. That's exactly why we need to have that break, because sometimes we're just way too close. And as athletes, we want to just power through, because that's in our nature, right? There's a fine line of when do we power through and when do we actually need to take a step back to kind of like redraw that arrow, and then it gets launched forward and leads us into stage 3, which is flow itself. And when we're experiencing flow, then we're problem solving on a whole nother level. We're making connections from this conversation and what I did here and when I did this, and it's all kind of making sense. And we have this like really huge eureka moment. And then on the other side of it, the 4th stage is recovery. We need some time after flow because it's a very high energy draining process to properly recover. And that could be something as simple as stretching, taking another walk, doing something of that nature, sitting in a sauna, ice bath, whatever, but understanding what recovery means to you and making it really, getting gritty with that recovery. Flow doesn't happen unless all 4 of those stages are present. So we need to prioritize each of them as we go. Does that make sense?
Man, that makes perfect sense. And I'm loving this, Cory, because I jumped on here planning to interview you, and here I am getting a coaching session. So props to you for making great use of the time, man. I know a lot of people are going to benefit from this, especially entrepreneurs. I did have a quick question, though, just to take a deeper dive on this.
Yeah.
You said the first step is struggle, and that's where we develop our skills, by going through the struggle, right? Like you said, the whole like pushing the rock analogy, kind of getting stronger every day. What was I understand the concept of the second step, but what did you say it was called again?
Just taking a second to like take a pause, take a step away.
Okay. How do we know? This is what I wanted to ask you. how do we know? Because I think there's a fine line, especially for me. I've struggled with this, man.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm being selfish with getting the coaching from you. How do we know when it's time to take a step back, or if it's just like, if I keep pushing, I'll get through to the other side of this? Do you know, or is it kind of like an instinct thing? How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So that's something that we start to tune into more and more. The more we're able to listen to our intuition, and the more like self-aware we are, really it boils down to how in tune to your nervous system are you? Like, if you can understand, this is where I normally feel, this is like when I'm feeling amazing, this is where I'm here, baseline is here, and I'm feeling like down here. We have to understand, like, what we're talking about right now, it can apply to like a 3-hour period in a day. It can apply to a full day. It can apply to a week. It can apply to a month. Our ability to take on struggle can be trained, as we know from working out, right? Like, each time, if I want to get stronger at bench pressing, which I never was, but if I wanted to get stronger at bench pressing, I would be like, all right, cool. I'm going to put 135 on the bar today, and I'm going to rep it out, and I'm going to hit 10 reps today. Awesome. And then the next day, if I try to do 10 reps again, it's going to probably feel a little bit harder, but maybe I'm still making some gains. Eventually, I'm going to need to take a step back and maybe cut my reps down, go up in weight. We can fluctuate, and everybody's going to respond to a different program differently. We just have to find what makes sense to us. So for you, it's like taking a time to pause, listen to that intuition. And I love things like, one of the things I use personally and I use with all my clients is Whoop, like the biometrics that this provides, where we're looking at heart rate variability, we're looking at respiratory rate, resting heart rate. I like to look at trends. One-off situations are interesting to me, but if we're constantly trending where, okay, our recovery has been really, really bad for a week straight, that's a warning sign. Like, okay, cool. Like, what's going on here? Or if there's a very, very large spike in our respiratory rate, it's like, okay, I know you've been grinding. You got that deadline that you're really pushing for, but I think you're going to benefit more from just taking a second, maybe a half day today at work, and we'll step away and we'll come back. And I know that's the scariest thing to you when you're on a deadline, right? You're like, oh, I need to just work harder. I need to get this done, but you're not always working efficiently. So being able to be in tune to your biofeedback and having the just natural intuition to start to feel those things, then you can get into flow and can understand that line of keep pushing through the struggle or take a step back for a second.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense, man. I think that, and what I love about the work that you're doing is how you've been able to combine. You know, we know as athletes, like, the mind and the body are one. And the fact that you're kind of using the body to teach mindset and the mindset to teach, you know, for some of your training clients who are actually working on their bodies. The fact that you've intertwined the two, I think it's really cool. You're like a scientist, man. I love your approach. Like, you can tell you've done your research.
My degree is in exercise science with a concentration in exercise physiology. So I've always been fascinated with how the body responds to physical stimulus. But over the years, I've just become more and more fascinated by how does the body respond to mental stimulus and what is going on in that sense. I'll give you an example that's really been like crazy impactful. We love meditation, right? I know you said earlier you have your prayers and your meditation in the morning to kind of get into the day. And I think meditation's great. I think it serves a purpose. But at the same time, is it totally practical for real life? You know what I mean? Because if you're driving your car down the road and someone cuts you off, you're not going to have time to be like, I'm going to pull to the side of the road. I'm going to meditate and just like bring my heart rate down. I'm going to become calm. And no, you're going to be pissed off. You're probably going to try to make some irrational decisions, and that's not productive either. So what I've come to really love is using physical stimuli and stressful environments in a controlled setting to help people train that nervous system response to the real world. So an example is like I have an ice bath here. I love cranking that thing as cold as possible, like under like 38 degrees or so. And I'll put my Whoop Live on so I can see what my heart rate's doing. And I'll notice I'll pop in and it's an immediate shock to the system. It's no different than the car cutting you off. And my heart rate spikes. It goes well over like 120, 130 because the body's just in shock. It's just dropped into this really cold environment. It's more or less going, WTF is going on here? And then the training part comes, okay, well, let me see where I can take my mind to a certain place. What can I think of? How can I breathe? And once I find that out, I can see my heart rate now goes back down and actually goes lower than it was before I was even in the ice bath. So now I'm even more of a clear headspace. It's when you're running around the football field and you get, run into hit, and then you come up and you're like, all right, I needed that. Like I needed that hit to like lock me into the game. You know what I mean? Before this, I was kind of running around. I was thinking all these things. It's like when they throw the quarterback, a freshman quarterback in the national championship, like Trevor Lawrence a few years ago, they throw him a few short pass plays to get his confidence going. And he's like, okay, cool. Like we're really here. We're doing this thing. Otherwise, his head's all over the place. We can use controlled stress to do that on a daily basis. You don't have to jump into a cold ice bath to do it, but it's going to help.
Yeah, man. I love that. Thank you for using a football analogy. So it really stuck with me because you're so right, man. That first contact in the game, it just eliminates all the butterflies. It goes from, palm sweating to like, okay, boom, there's that first impact. And it's like, okay, I'm here. It's game time. I'm in the game because that first shock to the system happened, That's awesome, man. Oh, is there anything? I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask you just on the entrepreneurship side, because everything you're doing with Forever Athlete is amazing, man.
We could roll with flow all day, but let's go business side of things.
Yeah, man. Just because I wanted to ask, I mean, I've seen you also really I was telling Marlene before we jumped on here, I was telling Marlene how I've seen her just take it to another level. And I've seen the same thing with you, man. It's not that you weren't already doing big things. Don't get me wrong. You were already killing it and putting out great content and having great interviews on the podcast, but I've seen a shift, man. You launched the Forever Athlete clothing line. You got a bunch of other projects that we're working on right now. We're working on the Forever Athlete co-author book. I just feel like there's a sense of urgency that is evident in everything that you do. So I have a two-part question. The first one is maybe I'm just imagining it. Maybe it was always there, but is there something that sparked that? And then the second part is like, big picture, where are you going, man? What are you up to these days? Like, what's the next big frontier for you and for Forever Athlete and everything else you're up to?
Yeah, no, you're not imagining it. I think to my point earlier of the bench press example, right? Like when you're first introduced to the weight room, you're kind of struggling. Like I laugh back to when I first got into college for college swimming and they threw me in the weight room. I was not benching the bar. Like it was embarrassing. Girls were squatting more than me. I was like, man. But over the course of time, you're able to take on more and more of a load, right? And then all of a sudden people look at you and they're like, damn, Tosh, that's really impressive. You're throwing some weight around. Like you're a strong dude. Entrepreneurship's the same thing. I think tomorrow will be a year to the date that I left my full-time job and started doing this full-time. And man, it's funny with a year perspective looking back and saying, what was I doing a year ago? Like that. I was just kind of like hoping that this would work. And I was getting some progress, but then sticking to a program and I got coaching. I wasn't afraid to invest in myself. I'm not afraid to take risks and try something out just because I know whatever is going to happen is just going to be feedback, and that's going to determine like what the next step is. So I think that's what you're seeing from an outside perspective is just me getting more efficient with trying something, getting feedback, implementing the feedback, whatever that may be, and just rolling with stuff, trying to keep the momentum going and better understanding my own energy in the process. And then as far as where I see it going, I'm super excited about it. What I've really been building here in LA is a conscious community and resources for people to come together and just connect through how we connected, just our shared experience, and provide a space where people are like, hey, look, you're up to cool things. I'm up to cool things. Like, let's collaborate. So I did an event earlier this month. I'm doing another one next month, calling the Forever Athlete Olympics. We're teams of 4 competing over 10 events for some prizes, which will be super exciting. But what really excites me is the model that I'm building here. There's no reason why it can't be also in Austin, Texas, and also in DC and in New York. I want to build a network where when athletes retire, whether they're professional or collegiate, they can automatically just get plugged into the Forever Athlete network wherever they are. If they move, even better. Now they have 100 people in a new city that they know right away are good people, and they're just going to be plugged in with. So that's what we're in the works of kind of building right now behind the scenes.
Yeah, that is awesome, man. I'm so excited for the Forever Olympics or Forever Athlete event to come to Austin, Texas, man, so I could pull up, finally meet you in person after all this time, you know?
I know, man. We'll make it happen. I'll be, like I said, I'll be part-time in Austin come October, so it'll be good.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I just want to point out something that I can't let this pass before we wrap up with this, because you talked about the thing that really had the shift for you business-wise was investing in yourself, and then also getting coaching and not being too proud. And I'm saying this because I know there are athletes listening to this who may be going through this or will go through this, because I've been through it just like you, where you feel like at a certain point, nobody can tell you anything, which is very, and once you have that shift and you open yourself up to, okay, I don't know everything. I need to get with people who are, first of all, willing to take the time to help me, even if I have to invest to pay for it. Like, that's so key, man. Like, you see me, like, I'm a coach too, but for everybody watching this, I sat here and just got coached by Cory for 30 minutes. I'm not too proud. Well, Cory, what's Cory going to teach me? I'm a coach too. Like, I sat here and learned a bunch, and I have a page full of notes that I'm going to be able to take with me. So I just want people to take away from that. Like, if you want to go to the next level, you have to invest in yourself. And that doesn't always mean financially, although it doesn't hurt. If you if you invest in yourself, that'll take you to the next level quicker. But I just want people to take that away, man. What are your thoughts on that? Because that one hit me. That one really hit home for me.
Yeah. I was also on the other side of it for a while, where I had this big ego of, well, who are they to tell me how to do my thing? Like, I got this. And then I sat in that struggle for way longer than I wanted to. And I was like, oh, shoot, maybe they're onto something. Like, maybe I should give them the time of day. And the biggest analogy that we can draw is with sports, right? Why, like, do you ever think you could make it to the league without any coaches? Probably not. Yet here you are trying to build a business and making the Forbes under 40 under 40 list or 30 under, whatever it may be, and you're trying to do it solo. That's no different. Like, put the pride aside, get a coach. It's going to help you out in the long run. And it's just finding the coach that fits right for you. Just like you could be the best player in the world, but if you're on the worst team, you're not winning the championship. Like, find these spaces and these cultures that mesh well with who you are and understand you as a person. That's going to be where the biggest wins come from.
That's right. That's awesome, man. That's a perfect way to wrap it up, Cory. We could go on and on, man. I definitely want to be respectful of your time. I know you're a busy guy. You got things to do out there in LA. Before we wrap up, man, please tell people how they can get in touch with you, how they can follow the movement, all of that, please.
Yeah. Taj, I appreciate this space, and I love what you guys are doing here. So thank you. But if anyone listening wants to find me, at Cory Camp on Instagram, CoryCamp.com, or ForeverAthleteLA.com. We're working on that website as well. And come, if you're in LA, come through doing an event. And hopefully come this fall, we'll have some events more over the country. It'll be fun.
Awesome. And everybody, please make sure you check out the Athletic Mindset podcast too, because Cory's on there dropping gems. At least I know you can find it on the website, but I just wanted to put that up there too. Like, you're on there twice a week. You drop twice a week now, don't you?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I was about to say I drop 2 podcast episodes a week, but I forget to promote the podcast. So go check it out.
That's it. That's it. Well, awesome, brother. Thank you for your time today, man. We'll be in touch soon as always. Have a good weekend, brother. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Taj. Have a good one.
You too. Awesome. Cory Camp, folks. Forever Athlete. Make sure you get the merch too. Next up, my guy right here, the IE zone, Alan Kihende Aragbay. Hopefully I said his name right. I've been working on it. Alan Kihende Aragbay is a personal development coach who has assisted basketball players at all levels transition into retirement. After playing 2 seasons at Northeastern University, he transferred to American International College, where he made all league honors and led his team to the NCAA tournament. Upon graduating with a communications degree, Kihende became intrigued by how challenging the transition from basketball to the real world was. This interest led him to starting Transition Game, that's what it stands for, a personal professional development firm dedicated to creating transition programs for athletes. Understanding firsthand how much athletes must sacrifice to compete at the college and pro level, Kihende has made it his life's mission to ensure basketball players are able to achieve their hoop dreams while also being prepared to transition after hoops. Please welcome to Athlete to Entrepreneur, Alan Kihende Aragbay.
My guy, Taj, bro. How you doing, man?
Yeah, hey, what's up, brother? Good to see you, man.
You too as well, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. By the way, before we get into this, backstory, I have the gear, right? I had this whole thing planned out, man. Listen, you got to hear me out on this. I had this whole thing planned out where I was going to do like a wardrobe change after Cory and put the shirt on. And then I realized I've been wearing this so much, and I actually wore it to hoop yesterday, that it's musty. So I didn't want to have the musty shirt on underneath and be sitting here smelling myself. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and hold it up. But everybody, make sure you go get the gear. Yeah, most definitely. And I want to say, too, not that I'm trying to do a commercial. You know, I just support the homies. But I will say the quality is tremendous. Not only are the designs dope, but the quality is A1 because I've been working out in this almost every day. So make sure you go get the gear. We'll talk about that at the end. Yes, sir.
Appreciate
yes, sir.
you for supporting, too. Thank you, man.
Absolutely, man. I just want to say, man, it hasn't even been a full year since we connected. And already I'm excited about what the future holds for some of the things we're going to be working on together, man. We got some stuff going on behind the scenes. We'll keep hush-hush for right now, out of respect. Yes, sir. But I want to dive in, man, because I don't even think you and I have talked about this. Can you just talk about the tail end of your basketball career? Like, did you have, I know every athlete has aspirations to make it pro, but what was the transition like for you? I think that'll be a good jumping off point for us.
Sure. Man, I had aspirations to play in the NBA. I'll definitely say that. I started playing ball when I was 8, and for me, that was always the goal to play in the NBA. So, you know, playing in college, I didn't really abandon that dream until I was like 24, 25 years old. So till end of college, finished up playing, played well, working out, had an agent, training every day, the whole 9. And had some offers to go overseas, and just a couple things just didn't really work out. But as a hooper, like, you still hold on to that dream. Like, it's just so hard to abandon. That's the thing that you worked your whole life to become. And when you fall short, it's just a really hard thing to digest. And so, you know, it wasn't until I was like age 25 that I realized, okay, you have other skill sets. You have other things that you want to do. It's time to pivot. But you know, that was 3 years after I graduated. So you can imagine what that limbo, those 3 years were being in limbo. So,
yeah, man, I think that something happens where it does take you time to find your footing if you don't have the right knowledge, the right guidance. You know, if you're not tapped in with the right people, that's when it really started to click for me too. Around like 25, 26, I was like, man, I should really start working on myself instead of just floating around from job to job. You know?
Yeah.
Like in that 3-year period after college, when you were trying to figure it out, what were some, I guess, you know, we can talk about challenges that you had internally, but also what were some challenges as far as like getting your footing in the business world or the professional world?
Yeah, I would say for me, you know, I was always a great student. I always had a plethora of skill sets, like growing up, you know, things that my parents instilled in me, things I learned in school. All those things I sort of always had. So that wasn't necessarily my problem. It was just more so realizing that you have these skill sets and that it's okay to let go of this game that's really taken over your life. for for me, it was 17 years. So, and part of what I do, there's a model I teach called the FIRM model, and it's basically a 4-step process of transitioning that we believe all athletes should basically implement. And there's 4 things, and this is and creating this model really was a response to really the miseducation, I believe, is what's going on in college basketball. Players are not being groomed to succeed after sport. I'm sure you can attest to that, being a football player playing at the college level. They're not being taught the real world things that can really allow them to succeed after sport. And then the second part to that is, if they're being taught it, they're not really afforded the opportunity to take real advantage of it, given the demand of a college schedule. You know, playing basketball at the college level, bro. Like, there was times where, you know, we had events going on or academic things happening, but our schedule was so busy, we didn't really have the opportunity to take advantage of those things. And so for me, it was about creating a model that, in spite of this demand and schedule, in spite of the miseducation machine, I like to call it, what are some things that we can teach these kids that they can implement now that will prepare them for life after sport? And for me, it was the FIRM model. And the first pillar of that is F, which is financial literacy. There's no way you can succeed in this life after sports in the real world if you don't understand finance on a very basic level, how to build wealth, right? The second part to that is E, which is starting the process early. That's something that I think a lot of athletes just don't really understand. You know, you come up playing the game you love. For me, it was basketball early. I played at age 8, and you get indoctrinated into this game, and it's fun. It's beneficial. It keeps you out of trouble. Playing sports is an incredible thing. But when you grow up believing this is the only thing you can do, right? When you grow up believing that it's the NBA or bust, I mean, there's real consequences to that when you're older. And I just don't think we're beginning this process of the transition early enough. And the problem to that, and I'll take the words of Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, if you're trying to figure it out at the end, it's too late. It's too late. So that's the second pillar, starting the process early. And then R is replacing your passions. This is, to me, is one of the bigger points, is because, I mean, you know, again, for me, I was always, writing was always a passion of mine. And of course, we have a book coming out. We'll talk about that later, I'm sure. I was always drawn to being a writer. So that's something I really invested in early on. You know, I would blog, I would do certain things like that. So I was always developing that skill set. And so I always knew one day I'd be an author. I always knew one day this writing skill set would manifest in my life somehow. But I found that a lot of athletes don't really have other passions. They don't replace their sport with another passion that they can actually fall back onto. And then last is mental health. That's a big thing right now. And I want to also talk about some ways where when you go through the transition, and, you know, I faced mild depression, I faced, you know, anxiety, I faced low self-esteem, all because this game that I identify with exclusively was taken away from me, and I almost had nothing else to fall back on. So it was really, really big to sort of find ways, healthy ways, to deal with that mental health piece. And so that's the last pillar. So the FIRM model for me is really the 4 core ways for an athlete to properly and successfully transition.
Yeah, this is awesome, man. I definitely want to come back and revisit, because there's so many gems that you just dropped just with the FIRM model itself, and we will definitely circle back to that. But I want to take another peek behind the scenes, man, because you started talking about some of the mental health challenges that you were dealing with. It's great that you came up with this concept, but my thing is, like, you actually started executing on it to have the impact on people. See, and that's the thing that I appreciate, and that's why I have so much respect for the people that I invite to come on these panels, because you could have just been like, okay, these are some things that got me through. I'm okay now. My life is good. You know, I'm where I need to be. But you decided to reach back, put the time in, build an infrastructure, and then start really getting it out there in front of people. So can you just walk people through, you know, especially for the aspiring entrepreneurs who may be on the line, what was the moment where you said, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it, and then to stay consistent and actually continually execute on that through time? Can you just walk through
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, man, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. I'm not going to go on here and act like everybody should aspire to be an entrepreneur. It is not easy, but I will say this. If you have a worldview that you believe matters, If you've identified an issue in the world that needs fixing, a problem in the world that from your viewpoint hasn't been addressed, if you believe you have a purpose and that there's a way for you to impact lives, that's the prism in which to, I would say, pursue entrepreneurship. That's the way I'm pursuing it, right? If I didn't have this like burning desire in me, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Like, it's a lot easier to go get a paycheck, get paid every 2 weeks, right? Like that's and there's nothing wrong with that at all. You don't want to, because it's hard, and there's a lot. Listen, it's going to be financially impactful, right? Your energy, your time, all these things. But to go back to your question, when I realized that, one, this was my purpose, like this is my entire basketball journey, and we can talk about that another time. Like, I went through a lot through this game of basketball, some good, some bad, but the main thing is all of it shaped me to the person I am today. And I look back like, man, like here I am, 25, 26, both parents in the house, good head on my shoulders, was a good student. And I was going through this mild depression. I was going through this low self-esteem. I was going through all of these different things. And I can only help but imagine how many other kids were going through that or were going to go through that and had no idea that this was going to be coming their way, right? So I started to figure out, well, what was my process? How did I get here? How do I begin to pivot? And I started to realize, okay, if I can create this, if I can make my experience into a process, that's when I can reach back and be able to teach the next generation step by step how to transition. And so, but yeah, man, I would say purpose and that passion. If you don't have those two things, entrepreneurship probably isn't for you, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. And I love that you prefaced all of that by saying that it's not for everybody. And then two, the fact that you touched on, it really should start from a place of, this is something that I see in the world. This isn't an issue that I want to address. This is something that I feel like I can lend my skill set to, because, and this, I'm preaching to the choir, but for anybody listening, I think a lot of times people, when they hear entrepreneurship, they're just like, man, I want to be a millionaire and drive a Lambo. I'm just looking for the quickest way to get to the bag, not understanding that how you start is how you're going to finish. So if you start out on I need some money, you're going to burn out quickly when the money doesn't come right away, and it's not going to come right away. So the fact that you shared that, bro, the fact that you're talking about really tapping into solving an issue and taking your eyes off of yourself, looking at who can I impact with this work, like, that's what keeps you going when you don't feel like it, or when times get hard, or when money's low. It's like, man, if I don't keep pursuing this, then those people are not going to be helped by this work. So, man, Absolutely. That's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
So I want to go back to the firm method a little bit. Now, you said this came together through reflections about what you needed and what you experienced, and through your research as you were starting to see what was going on with the athlete community, right? How did you, like, when you talk about replacing, for example, you talked about the R in firm is replacing. How do you recommend that athletes go about identifying how they're going to replace that skill set? Like, what is that whole process like for you? I think that would be really good for people to hear.
Absolutely, man. And it goes back to beginning the process early. Like it's really hard. I believe it was Frederick Douglass that said something along the lines of, it's a lot easier to raise strong kids than it is to repair broken men. And in a lot of ways, it's like, man, it's so powerful, because it's not to say that if you start late, you can't be successful. I'm not saying that at all, but your greatest opportunity to really make this seamless is to start early, right? And that is to say, introduce kids to other things early. Like, like playing ball, bro, it was basketball or nothing. It was almost taboo to like have other interests in a way. And we just got to change this prism, like this whole paradigm. There has to be a paradigm shift, bro. Like, we got to introduce kids to other. And the funny part is, a lot of these kids have other skill sets. It's not cool to pull these things out. Like, I was always a writer. I used to get made fun of for like just writing, like on airplanes, going to games, or in hotels. I'd work on that stuff in my spare time, and it was kind of like my teammates would like look at me kind of funny, and it was like, dang, like we got to change this mentality, bro. Like, at the end of the day, the ball has to stop bouncing someday. And when that happens, will you be in position to exercise some other skill set that you should have been developing the past 10, 15 years? You know what I mean? So for me, it's one of the things I like to do is introduce whenever I'm working with a kid or a client, I like to strip them of their basketball prowess or whatever sport they play. Like when you walk into this classroom and we're jumping on a Zoom call and we're having this conference, you're not an athlete. For this hour that we're meeting, none of your newspaper articles or your rankings, none of that matters here. We're focusing on you, the person, not the athlete. And it's uncomfortable. It's weird. A lot of players don't get it, but I'm more so investing in what you need, not what you want. Like I'm not really concerned with what you want. You may not even know what you want yet. So I want to pour into you what you'll need and what your 30-year-old self or your 25-year-old self will be able to look back and thank you for. So introducing kids to other areas that they may or may not have an interest in, trying to pull out broaden their horizons, if you will, because what you'll find is that kids have a lot of other interests, but we don't make it cool to look into those other areas. So,
yeah, most definitely, man. That's huge. I love that you touched on that. That's something I'm big on as well, as you know. And I feel like the more you really drive that point home, because it's one of those things where some people may look at it as, oh, it's easier said than done. But the reality is, the more you keep putting that message out there and getting that into athletes' heads, it becomes like, no, if I actually make time to do this, then that's how I'm going to put myself in position and start early, like you're saying. So
that's exactly, yeah, that's it. And I want to add another point. It's, again, as a basketball player, like when I was 9 years old, I didn't think I would go to the NBA at age 10. I always knew if I worked hard this year and a little harder the next year and a little harder the next year, by the time I was 19 or 20 or 21, I'd be good enough because of all of that work I put in those prior years to one day be in the NBA. It's the same thing when it comes to personal development. You're not going to get it all overnight, right? But you broaden your horizons, you invest in these other areas, and you look up 5 or 10 years later, and this thing that this journey you embarked on now is a full-blown skill set that you can fall back on. So it's funny how there's always this dichotomy between sports and business or the real world, but we got to pull it out of kids. So,
yeah, man, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you about this too. At first I was gonna keep it under wraps, but you kept talking about how you're a writer, and we won't talk about the name or anything right now. But you are in the process of working with Self-Published in 30 Days, which I have the honor and the privilege of being able to assign the team to it and everything. So, this is an exciting time for me because I just look at once this book comes out that you're working on right now. It's going to be a game changer for so many different reasons. And I say that not even having read the manuscript yet. Like I don't read, I have access to the manuscripts, but I don't read anything until the official physical book comes out. And that's how I want to experience it for the first time. But just knowing you and knowing what you're about and seeing the messages that you push out on social media, I know the book is going to be a game changer. So what I wanted to ask you was, aside from being a talented writer, what had you decide to go ahead and take the step forward to be like, you know what? I want to reach people. I want to reach my audience and get this message across in the form of a book and becoming an author.
I'm going to tell you, you're my guy. So I'm going to tell you the full story of how this whole entire thing came to me. So I was in Australia, 2018, having a vacation just with a friend. And I was in an Uber. We were going to Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. If you ever get a chance to go, beautiful beach. And I was talking to the Uber driver, and he was asking me about just how it is in America and what I did and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I used to play basketball and stuff like that. And he was, oh, what do you do now? And I was at the time, doing medical sales. And he was like, oh, well, how did you get into that? And so how was the transition? We just started asking me a lot of questions, and I started talking about it, my own personal experience. And then he was like, yeah, it must be hard for like a lot of guys to like do that. And I was like, yeah, it is kind of hard. And then he was like, you should write a book. Ha, 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 ha. And I was like, just like that. It was like this aha moment. And my friend and the driver they started laughing because it was a joke to him. But in that moment, I was like, I should really write a book. And I literally, I got home, dude, it was August. I got home. It was like September 1st when I got back. That day I started writing. And I believe 100% that was God giving me my purpose in that moment. And the funny part is I always knew I would write a book. But as you know, being an author yourself, you can't write a book if you're not inspired to write. You have to be inspired to write. It's one thing to be good at writing. It's another thing to have the skill set. But if you're not inspired to put out an entire, piece of literature, it's not going to get done. And that's why probably so many authors start books, but they don't finish them. So for me, that was the moment that this book concept came to me. Even the entire brand of Transition G, it began as a book. And as I began to write, it just started to scale and grow. And I realized like this is an entire movement. So needless to say, the book is coming out. Obviously, you know about that. I'm really, really excited to have that out because that's, in a lot of ways, that's what's near and dear to my heart, just as an art piece. And so the process is going great, man. So, yeah.
Man, that's amazing. That's crazy how it all came together just from an Uber ride. Everybody in there, everybody else in the Uber is cracking up, laughing. You should write. You're like, wait just a minute.
I'm like, whoa.
Right. That's crazy. And I love how you said that book essentially became the foundation for everything you've done with Transition G. It's like, I always say, well, I don't always say, this is something I recently realized. I forgot where I heard it. But life itself is like waking up every day and reading the book, but also writing the book. Like you're the author and the consumer of your own book. And so that makes me think to like how crazy that came together for you, where the book that you're authoring essentially is becoming your business and you're building both at the same time. It gets deep, man. I think that's really cool. Just from a technical standpoint for any athletes on aspiring entrepreneurs on the line, I should say, like, how did you even begin? I know you started writing the book, but when it came to the business side of things, and obviously you've done a phenomenal job with the branding, which I still need to get a consultation from you, man. I'm a book sometime. You just send me the invoice.
Got you.
Phenomenal branding with everything that you're doing. Like, where did you even begin once you were like, okay, green light, I'm going forward with this? What was the first step?
Good question. And I think the first caller, Marley, you guys talked about that. You gotta have a team, bro. You gotta have a team. And that's one thing. It's one thing I knew I would need. And the funny thing about that, even having a team, because the first thing you think about is, well, how do you pay people? But I'm gonna be honest with you. Here's a little secret for all you aspiring entrepreneurs. When you are aligned with your purpose, when you really are tackling something that's meaningful, a worldview that matters, you will be shocked how many people want to just be a part of that, right? Not to say they'll work for free per se, but you can structure situations where you have help that's cost efficient. And so I would say, the people who I have around me believe in my vision, right? I'm the visionary of this company. They believe in what I'm doing, and I have people who help me out, like in areas that I'm not the most versed in, right? So structuring a business, you have to know how to run a business, right? You talked a little bit about the branding part and social media and content creating and all that. That's a whole other world that I was not really into until I realized it's the digital age. I need to put out content to drive the brand. So I have people who I've been able to work with, and the amazing part about the entire everybody I work with is that they're all people who I have in my phone. Like I wasn't going out outsourcing anything. This is my immediate network. And that's the other thing. When they say like your net worth is your network, that it couldn't be more true. Like starting your phone, literally, if you're looking to build a team, go through your call log. It could be people you haven't spoke to in 10 years, which is one of the cases for me. I have a friend who I literally haven't spoke to in a decade, but we crossed paths again when he saw what I was doing with TG, and he reached out, and we're working together now. So having a team, you're not going to know everything. You do need to be prepared to play multiple positions, definitely. That's what entrepreneurship is essentially. But areas where you're not that strong, like look for folks who are strong in that area. Everybody has a skill set. At the end of the day, it's all about making your business and the vision and executing it, even if you have to relinquish a little bit of power in certain areas. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, that's sound advice right there, especially when you talk about just start with your contacts list. Like just open. Whoa, I don't know what that was. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you good.
What's crazy, man? That happened on the last panel towards the tail end. It's something about like I don't know what that was. But anyway, that completely just threw me for a loop right now. I was like, what just happened? Yeah, we good. But yeah, man, I think that the advice that you just gave right now is so strong because it doesn't have to be super complicated. Like you said, it's as simple as just opening up your phone and being like, who can I call on, or who has a skill set that I don't have, or who can lend their expertise. And then, like you said, with you being the visionary and having like the right people will gravitate towards that and want to help you, especially, you know, when it comes to, because you mentioned compensation, right? And I think the people who are like, well, how much am I going to get paid? Those are the wrong people to begin with, you know? And the people who get it and see the long-term vision, like, okay, I want to do this because it's the right thing to do. And then also keep it in the back of the mind, if you really believe in it, as time moves forward, you're going to get taken care of. That's
100%.
That's just the law of, what do they call it? It's the law of words of wisdom by something. Yeah, a law of, oh my goodness, reciprocity. That's what
reciprocity. Oh my, that's a big one. That's huge.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Man,
Absolutely,
so,
man.
and shout out to E. Adako. He says,
my boy Manny. Yeah.
Nancy definitely dropping some gems. Nancy Aragbay definitely dropping some gems. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Man, this is okay. Who we got there? I'm gonna let you go with that name, Alan. Who's that?
Al Davino. That's my guy. That's my guy, Vinny. My guy, Vinny.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Everybody showing love. Let's go. My touch 16 says, "Let's go." You got the crowd going wild right now, bro. Everybody's loving the gems that you're dropping. Yes, indeed. Let's do this, man. I want to talk about the future of Transition G, man. Like, what's TG looking like? I know you have a grand vision. Let's just talk. We could talk like immediate future, or just 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. Like, in your mind, what does that vision look like?
Listen, man, I don't even know if ambition is the word. Like, it's such a big, it's colossal what's inside of me, bro. And like, I see this completely revolutionizing the game of basketball, like completely, because again, and this is the driving force for this whole entire company, is the following statistic, that 99% of college basketball players won't go to the NBA. Like, it's such a big stat. People know it. We don't really drive it home. And it's not to kill dreams or to say who's going and who's not going, but it's to create this paradigm shift of athletes who are using the game to pivot as opposed to being used by the game. So for me, it's like the 99%, like, you know how many people that is? How many players that is? Like, that's an entire culture of sport. So I just see personal development being as important as player development, right? I envision a world where like athletes are literally graduating, right? And they're financially literate, right? They're prepared to pivot because they've given this period of their life thought for the last 5, 10 years. It's very different when you've thought about this moment, basketball being over, for 5, 10 years, as opposed to like graduating and then trying to fit. It's just very different. So I just see a whole generation of athletes being educated with the right type of information where they can successfully transition and making personal development cool. So the sky's not even the limit, bro. Like, I really wish I could put it in the right words, but honestly, like, with the ambition that I have in myself and like the work I'm prepared to do, it's changing an entire culture.
That's phenomenal, man. And the great part about it, man, and that's the thing that excites me, is that you're already doing that. You know what I mean? And so it's just going to continue to grow. And I'm excited to have connected with you and cross paths, and that we're working on projects together. It excites me, man. And like I was telling Marley earlier, it just reminds me that I'm not crazy. It's other people thinking like me. It's other people really out here executing. So I'm honored to call you a friend and call you a teammate in life now on this mission that we're both on. And definitely appreciate you giving some time today, man. Before we get out of here, we could easily go another hour. Matter of fact, I will have you back on, especially once the book comes out. We'll do a solo episode. We'll take a deep dive. But for the time being, man, before we wrap up, please tell people how they can get in touch and how they can support the movement, how they can get the merch, all of that.
Absolutely. So I got the website going on right now. That's transition-g.com. Instagram, you can follow me at TransitionG. And I'm also on TikTok. For those on there, it's Kehinde, KEHINDE_TG. So appreciate you, Taj.
Yes, sir. Go get the merch, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Make sure you follow this man. Appreciate your time, brother. You have a good one.
You too, brother. All right, man. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Awesome, folks. Well, we thank you for spending some time with us today. This has been another great Athlete to Entrepreneur panel. As always, I want to thank Self-Publish in 30 Days. a one-stop shop for all your publishing needs. If you're thinking about writing a book, make sure you visit selfpublishing30days.com. Thank you, Dana Gunn, our director of programming, for making this thing run smoothly. We will be back next month, like I mentioned, for the official Athlete to Entrepreneur book launch on August 28th. So stay tuned for details on that. All these great people have written a chapter for this book. Many of them have been on the Athlete to Entrepreneur panels in the past. So we definitely encourage you to go check out some of those. A lot of great people dropping gems. This event is also brought to you by, you see it behind me right here, ThriveAfterSports, my first solo book project. Make sure you go check that out, helping athletes dominate the game of life. I want to thank the panelists. This has been another phenomenal panel. I'm excited to having connected with these people, and I love all the work that these wonderful people are doing. And like I told everyone on here, I'm honored to be associated with them and to call them teammates. So with that being said, thank you all for being here with us. Everyone has a great Saturday. We'll see you next month. Peace.